Hello. Hello. Test.
Brian, will that be on the whole time, right?
Yep, I'm just making sure, because I got a microphone underneath here for our live stream.
Okay. So nobody has to turn it on and off. It's going to be on the whole time.
It'll be on.
Yes, perfect. Chris and I and Melissa on that side and our two
Johnson, the middle school principal. I'm honored to be speaking with you today on such an important occasion. Thank you to our students, staff, and all of those participating in the program today. We extend a warm welcome to our veterans, family members, community members, and those of you joining us online. Today is the day when we set aside time to remember and salute all of those individuals who have made personal sacrifices for our country. On this Veterans Day, we continue to remember those who have served and those who continue to serve. To our veterans present today, thank you for answering the call to service. Thank you for possessing courage, pride, determination, dedication, and integrity. You are joined today by our middle school and high school student body as we pay tribute to those that have served, to those that have lost their lives, and to their families for the sacrifices that they have made. As we honor our service members, let's also remember the sacrifices, achievements, and courage they needed to defend our country, not only today, but every day. As we move forward, we must continue to work together as responsible citizens for the betterment of our country. Happy Veterans Day. Please stand as our colors are marched in.
As people get into their mid to late teenage years, they begin to think about what they want to do. At 17 years old, John Van Eschen thought it would be a good idea to enlist in the military for 2 reasons.
Seeing the history of our country and the sacrifices that all the men and women made, that I thought it was a thing to do. And When I was 15, my father passed, and he was my rudder. And at 17, I needed a rudder.
Von Eschen eventually decided to enlist in the Marines because he said they would keep you in the right direction. He began with boot camp in San Diego, California, where he said it was quite rigorous, but he enjoyed it and got through it well. It was here that Von Eschen took an aptitude test to see how he would best be able to serve the Marine Corps. After boot camp, he would go to radio telegraph operator school to become a radio operator. After a year since he began boot camp, Von Eschen was sent home on leave until he received his orders to report to Okinawa, Hawaii.
We had Liberty that night, so I went into town and found my brother, and we sat in one of the local establishments visiting. And then about mid-evening, 9:30 or so, all the local police at the bay, at the port, started going through the hotels and bars and restaurants, telling all military personnel to get back to their ships.
John returned to the ship about 11 o'clock that evening, and 3.5 hours later, they pulled out of port as a convoy of about 20 ships.
And we're told that we were going to Cuba. The Russians had put missiles in Cuba. We were going to go remove them.
As they got closer, they soon found out they weren't alone.
About 12 miles from Cuba, and you could see the ships in the distance. And we were told that there was another convoy of ships coming from the other direction, coming from the east. And that between the Marines and the Navy and the Air Force that were based on the tip of Florida, we had all the air support we needed, and we were taking Cuba.
It wouldn't take long for the plans to change.
3 miles and the ships disappeared. And we were told later that Khrushchev and President Kennedy were negotiating on the phone. Khrushchev was trying to save face. He demanded that Kennedy remove the missiles in Turkey pointed at Russia. So he told me to remove the missiles, and the Russians packed up and went home.
After being stationed in Okinawa for a little over 2 years, Von Eschen was given orders to go to Vietnam.
Second day of packing, I got called into the captain's office, and he told me that I couldn't go to Vietnam. I was going back to the States, and I said, "Well, why is that, sir?" He said, "Because you've been overseas for over 2 years." I said, "I want to stay with my unit." "You are not in the democracy. You are in the military, and you're going to go back home."
Von Eschen was then sent to a training base in Quantico, Virginia.
We train Marine Corps second lieutenants right out of school and FBI agents in communications. And all the companies, corporations in the United States that build armaments and try and sell them to the military.
The base was rather large, with many offerings.
The base is about 30,000 acres of areas that you can fire lots of different equipment and stuff. And so we would communicate for those events when companies would come show their artillery to the government to see if they were interested in buying any of it.
As John looks back on his experience, he has a message for everyone.
Well, I would just say, looking at my experience in the military and what people had to sacrifice, that we need to remember that. And we need more people to serve.
Each year, we have students respond to the prompt, "What Veterans Day Means to Me," and then we choose one middle school student and one high school student to share their essay. This year, our two essay speakers are fifth grader Paisley Klein and senior Jacob Decker.
What Veterans Day Means to Me by Paisley Klein. On November 11th, we celebrate a very important holiday. Veterans Day is a day where we honor the veterans that have served and are serving for our country. We also spend this special day thanking the veterans that risked their lives for our safety and the country's safety. If we didn't have the veterans we have today, our country would not be the way it is right now. Not many of us want to go fight in wars and risk our lives for other people, but these veterans have the courage to go fight in wars and protect us and our country. I couldn't imagine the world we have today without our veterans. Some days I don't want to imagine what it would be like without veterans, because I know it wouldn't be good. Veterans make our country feel safe and protected. I know when I go to bed every night, our country is safe and I don't have to worry about waking up to a new war. Some days I wake up and thank the veterans that are protecting me and my family. I've met many veterans in my little life, and let me tell you, it's so special to sit down with them and have them tell you about their veteran history. I have memories every day about Veterans Day programs and talking to all the veterans. Veterans save lives and countries. Thank you, veterans.
Today we gather here to honor our veterans on this very special occasion of Veterans Day. This is a day when we set aside time to express our deepest gratitude, respect, and admiration for those brave men and women who have selflessly served and continue to serve our country. It is a day to commemorate their courage, sacrifice, and unwavering dedication to protecting the freedoms we hold dear. Veterans Day is a stark reminder that our liberty and the privileges we enjoy have not come without a price. It reminds us of the immense debt we owe to those who have worn the uniform of the armed forces. These heroes have answered the call to serve, putting their lives on the line and placing themselves in harm's way to secure the well-being and safety of our beautiful nation. These veterans have not only shown courage on the battlefield, but also exemplified the core values of honor, duty, and commitment. They have given their all, leaving behind their families, friends, and the comforts of home so that we may continue to live in a free and prosperous society. Their unwavering resolve and resilience reflect the very best of humanity and serve as an inspiration to all of us. We must recognize that being a veteran does not end with the completion of military service. It is a lifelong journey of carrying the burdens of war, both physical and emotional. Many veterans continue to face challenges to this day, whether that be PTSD, physical disabilities, and difficulty reintegrating into civilian life. It is our duty as a grateful nation to stand by them, to support them, and to ensure that they receive the care and assistance they deserve. Additionally, on this day, we should also remember and acknowledge the families of our veterans. They, too, make tremendous sacrifices, enduring long separations, worrying day and night for their loved ones, wondering, what if they never come home? Many of you here may be a family member of a veteran, I myself included. My Uncle Davey served the country while being in the United States Army from 2007 to 2010, while being on reserve from 2010 to 2012. My Uncle Josh served in the Navy from 1996 to 2002, while being on reserve, he remained on inactive reserve for an additional 2 years. My older brother, Caden, joined the Navy and is stationed out in Charleston, South Carolina. He graduated from Dassel-Cokato High School in the year 2019 and has been serving our country ever since. It has been difficult not being able to see him as often as we'd like, considering how annoying he may be sometimes as an older brother. But thanks to technology, we can still communicate with him as often as we like. As we come together to reflect on the significance of Veterans Day, let us embody the true spirit of gratitude and honor. Let us remember that it is through the strength and courage of our veterans that we continue to enjoy the blessings of liberty. Today and every day, let us express our heartfelt thanks to all of those who have fought and are still fighting for our freedom. God bless our country and God bless our veterans. Thank you.
Would you please stand? Please join our Dassel-Cokato Middle School Student Council in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. It is my great honor to introduce our guest speaker this afternoon, Tim Steiner. Tim was raised in Tomah, Wisconsin, graduated from high school there, and enlisted in the Wisconsin Army National Guard. After high school, he attended college at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point and graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree. After college, Tim moved to Minnesota and joined the Minnesota Army National Guard. He served for 28 years in the National Guard and held various leadership positions to include Army Platoon Leader, Armor Company Commander, and Rear Detachment Battalion Commander. While serving in the Minnesota Army National Guard, Tim was deployed to Bosnia and Iraq and was awarded the Bronze Star, National Defense Service Medal with Bronze Star, Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, and the Global War on Terrorism Medal. As the Meeker County Veterans Service Officer, he looks forward to reaching out to all of the service members, veterans, and their families in the county to give them the respect that they have earned and help them access the benefits that they deserve. It is his honor and privilege to work with these men and women and advocate on their behalf. Please help me welcome Tim Steiner.
I actually got it to work. Just a disclaimer, I did grow up in Wisconsin, so I am a Packers fan. Hope that's okay. Okay, just checking. Hey, first of all, I really got to say I don't have much else to say because Paisley and Jacob did such a good job that I really don't have a presentation anymore. No, I'm just kidding. But you guys did really do a good job. When I was in 5th grade, I don't think I could have stood up in front of a crowd like this and spoke to anybody, especially this size, let alone 12th grade. So fantastic job. You guys did a really great job. My name is Tim Steiner, as mentioned. At least that's what my parents told me. I'm the Meeker County Veterans Service Officer and a veteran of the Army National Guard with 28 years of service, mostly in Minnesota. As mentioned, I deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan as part of the 34th Infantry Division. That's the Red Bull patch. Have you ever seen that around the state here? Also known as the Red Bull Division. I was both enlisted and an officer. Proudly served with some of the greatest people that I ever had the privilege of knowing. I'm honored to have been chosen to speak at your event today. This is really great. And by the way, I got to say this is a really good turnout. It's amazing to see all these young people and all the other younger ones sitting up here together. And this is a really important thing we're doing today, is to honor those veterans. I guess I got to get closer to the mic. There we go. Is that better? Tilt it up? Okay. I should have practiced beforehand. So a little history lesson, because I know you all like history. So what is Veterans Day? Annual American holiday honoring military veterans. It is celebrated every year on the 11th of November, and this year it's observed because it falls on a weekend on a Friday. So today is the observation, or the day that we celebrate Veterans Day. And it's both a federal and a state holiday in all 50 states. What's the definition of a veteran? A person who served honorably in the United States military in any one of the 6 branches. There are 6 now. In the Army, the Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and now the Space Force. Why do we celebrate Veterans Day? Paisley and Jacob did a good job of explaining that. I'll just go into a little more detail. We celebrate it because we want to honor the veterans who have risked their lives for our country, others who served during peacetime but were trained and ready to leave at a moment's notice to defend our freedoms. And it gives us a chance to thank them for their service. These men and women were ordinary people until they heard the call of duty and answered it. They left their families, their homes, and their lives not for recognition or fame, or even the honor we bestow upon them today. They fought to protect our country, to maintain our way of life. And I can just tell you on a personal note, I can still remember the first time that I deployed and had to say goodbye to my family, thinking that might be the last time I would see them. How did Veterans Day come to be? On November 11th, it was acknowledged as Armistice Day in 1919 by President Woodrow Wilson to honor the soldiers who fought in World War I. Then in 1954, after World War II and the Korean War, it was renamed Veterans Day to honor all veterans who served America and defended democracy. So what are some ways that Veterans Day is celebrated? Events obviously is in your school today here, parades, memorials that are held at various sites. I know there's veterans memorials in Dassel and Cokato both. Speeches such as this, ceremonies honoring local veterans, and flowers placed on memorials and military graves. What are some ways you can honor veterans? Volunteer in places that help veterans, fly a U.S. flag, visit a cemetery, visit a veterans memorial. And by the way, the picture on the bottom is the Veterans Memorial in Kingston. It's a really nice memorial. If you ever get a chance to go there and visit that, that's great. Could attend a parade. Few statistics on the number of living American veterans. Right around 18 million. That represents somewhere between 5 to 7% of the U.S. population. That's a pretty small percentage, and even a smaller percentage is the 1% of the population which is currently serving in the military. So it is a pretty small group of people that serve in the United States military, and that's what we're here to do today, is to honor them. Now, some statistics about the number of Americans who served from World War I to current. And these are some pretty amazing statistics. 4.7 million men and women served in the U.S. military forces in World War I, 2.8 million of those overseas, over 53,000 killed in action, and over 63,000 died from disease or other causes, and 205,000 wounded. World War II, 17.8 million men and women served in the U.S. military forces. And I didn't realize this until I saw the number. 38.3% were volunteers in World War II. And the draft was very active at that point. So 61.2%, 11.5 million were drafted. Quite a few, unbelievable amount of killed in action, 407,316. And just to put that number in perspective, if you were to take a city the size of Dassel, that's the equivalent of 278 cities the size of Dassel, the number that were killed in action in World War II. Pretty staggering statistic. Average age of the U.S. servicemen at that point was 26 years old. And you can see in the pictures there in the upper right-hand corner, shows you the type of uniforms they wore. And they had a steel pot at that time, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The main weapon they used was actually what was called an M1 Garand. It was a 30-06 semi-automatic rifle. In the Korean War, 6.8 million men and women served in the United States military forces. And you can see up on the screen there, almost 34,000 were killed in action, over 20,000 died of other causes, and 92,134 were wounded. If you look at the bottom picture, what you see there is it's called a recoilless rifle, an anti-tank recoilless rifle. And you look on the picture on the right, you still see the steel pot. You don't see any flak vests that you're going to see will come later as far as protecting the veterans or the service members. During the Vietnam War, 2.6 million men and women served in the U.S. military forces. Over 47,000 killed in action, almost 11,000 died from other causes, and 303,704 wounded. If you look at the right-hand picture, that's a Huey helicopter, and if you've ever heard a whop, whop, whop sound, that's what they sound like. Can you verify that? Okay, yeah, that's exactly what they sound like, if you've ever heard it. The picture on the left is a soldier with an M60 machine gun, and you can see there that they still have what's called a steel pot, the helmet. Average age for the Vietnam War of the soldiers, service members, was 22 years old, so a little bit younger in this one. Moving on to the Gulf War, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, which occurred in the 1990-1991 time frame. At this point in the military, there was no longer a draft. It was an all-volunteer military, so almost 700,000 men and women served in the U.S. military forces at with that conflict, and 299 were killed in action. And if you look at the lower left-hand picture, you'll see F-16s and F-14s in that picture, and you'll see something else in there. You'll see all that smoke burning in the background. They set the oil wells on fire, and there were some other things that were occurring there. And one of my jobs when I work with the veterans is some of those things they've been exposed to is what we help them out with, because whether it was Vietnam and Agent Orange exposure or whatever it might be, soldiers get exposed to things, or service members do, that you wouldn't normally get exposed to in the civilian world. So that's one of the main things that I do. The right-hand picture there, you can see now, hopefully you can see that, they've got an M16 there, they got Kevlar helmets, and they got flak vests. So since 9/11, the War on Terror, 2.8 million men and women served in the U.S. military forces. That's still an all-volunteer force. Over 7,000 killed in action, mostly Iraq and Afghanistan. And the left-hand picture you're looking at there now, it's an M4 rifle, and if you look on the bottom, that's a 40-millimeter grenade launcher. And then if you look at the front of their helmets, they actually have what's called night vision devices. And then on the right, of course, are M1 tanks. And that's a picture in Baghdad of what's called the Victory Arch. Now to the fun part, because I know you guys love all those statistics, right? So there's some local veterans, and I did a little bit of research, got a lot of help from a lot of different people. This particular veteran's from Cokato, served in World War I. Last surviving member of Company H, 3rd Pioneer Infantry. And according to one of his relatives, who just happened to walk into the office one day last year, he provided me these pictures and also said that he had a really rough voice due to mustard gas exposure. Before I mention some of the exposures and things that the military service members are exposed to, that was one of them. Chlorine gas and mustard gas. Mustard gas could kill you or blind you or cause a rough voice in his case. So veterans do get, service members do get exposed to a lot of things that you wouldn't normally be exposed to in the civilian world. World War II veteran here, the first one I have up here is Ken Skalberg from Dassel. He served his country in 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, as a fighter pilot and a cargo pilot. He grew up on a dairy farm south of Dassel by Pigeon Lake. Does anybody live out by Pigeon Lake here? No? Okay. Maybe. All right. He volunteered for the U.S. Army in 1942 after graduating from high school. He served in the Pacific during World War II and flew every fighter plane in the U.S. Army Air Corps inventory. That's really something to say. The middle picture you're seeing there, he is pictured with what's called a P-38 Lightning. That was a very maneuverable fighter plane. And then the picture on the left, lower left, is him in World War II as well. At the end of World War II, Ken was in Okinawa, had been assigned a fighter escort for the invasion of Japan, and as we all know, that did not occur. He ended up retiring as a lieutenant colonel after 28 years of service. The next veteran I'd like to highlight is Kermit Swanson. He was also known as the Swede. If you look in the picture, I don't know if you can see that, but right up on the top of that, well, above their heads, it says Swede he put on his glider. So he also grew up on a farm, but in the Lake Jenny area south of Dassel. He volunteered for the U.S. Army, flew in 3 missions as a glider pilot: D-Day, Market Garden, and Varsity, all in Europe. He received a Purple Heart and 3 Air Medals, and he took some shrapnel to his face and his arms. 2 of the 3 missions were at night. If you could picture this, they were being in a glider, and they would typically have maybe a Jeep in there and some supplies for the ammo and food for the paratroopers they needed to resupply. Towed behind a plane, and then they would release them at about 500 feet, and they had to find their way to the ground without crashing. So only 74% of the, or I take that back, the mortality rate for the glider pilots was actually 74%. And on top of that, once they landed, they were dropped behind enemy lines. Once they landed, they actually had to find their way back. Pretty amazing story that he survived. Now, the Kermit and the first veteran I mentioned, Ken Skalberg, were actually friends, and they both lived in the Lakeside Nursing Home in Dassel at the same time. Now, I got this information from Randy Swanson, Kermit's son, this week, actually. He said they had many conversations about their experiences in World War II and even razzed each other a lot. I could probably talk for an hour about that because it was pretty interesting hearing all the stories, and I think a number of you actually knew both those veterans. So pretty interesting. There's some pretty amazing people in this area that served the military, and I'm just highlighting a few of them. The next person on here is Don Essen from Dassel. He served in World War II as part of the D-Day invasion. And then Alita Swanson from Dassel served her country in World War II and Korea as a nurse, and she retired from the U.S. Navy Reserves after 28 years of service. And Amy Wild from Dassel was in the World War II Women's Army Corps. These are just a few of the many veterans who served our country. I just highlighted a few. All of our veterans have protected our democracy, our freedom, and our way of life. Thank you for honoring our veterans with this program. God bless you. God bless service members past, present, and future. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from our chamber choir led by Miss Weeding with God Bless America. staff, community members, and most importantly, veterans, thank you. It is absolutely an honor and a privilege to express our gratitude today for your sacrifice and service. Thank you for the commitment you made, but also for your continued example of leadership and dedication. At this time, I'd like to ask all in attendance to please rise and remove your hats as our Dassel American Legion Post leads us through a rifle volley. Please be seated. At this time, I would like to personally thank our veterans who are here with us today and thank them for their service to our country. Veterans, please stand as you are able or wave as your name and branch is read. Please feel free to be seated as we move to the next name. Audience, please hold your applause until all names have been read. Ken Aho, Army. Chuck Eiley, Army. Steve Brecht, Army. Dennis Berglund, Army. Dennis Compton, Air Force. Mark Crayford, U.S. Navy. Angela Hopkins, Air Force. Jeff Horacek, Marines. Dave Wieko, Navy. Dennis Johnson, Army. Dan Jones, Navy. Craig K., Army. Marlo Knuth, Navy. Josh Limonen, Army. Mark Olson, Navy. Ed Otto, Army. Daniel Rinden, Army. Rolly Severson, Air Force. Doug Sill, Army. Charles Stovner, Marines. Dean Svella, Army. Melvin Turning, Army. John Venetian, Marines. Carl Wilkins, Navy. Harley Wilson, Army. Paul Wittenberg, Army. George Webb, Marine Corps. Elvin Plug, Marine Corps. Lee Rosenquist, Navy. Ron Keekley, Air Force. Kelvin Keith, Marine Corps. Taylor Bauman, Marine Corps. Owen Stonelake, Army. Mark Eiley, Army. And Nancy Piepenberg, Navy. Please give them a round of applause. And now our high school band, led by Aaron Bonert, will play the Armed Forces Melody. Veterans, please feel free to stand as you are able and/or wave and be recognized with your branch of service. Please rise as we prepare to retire the colors. Please be seated. Again, I want to thank you for being here today and for giving us the opportunity to honor you. At this time, I'd like to invite our student council down. They're getting ready here for our veterans to depart. I would ask that all other students remain where you are as our veterans in attendance and their guests begin to make their way to our community room for our reception. Thank you for being here. Please make your way to our community room, veterans and guests.